Hi, Ty. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, Kobas, I can hear you on my side.
Ty, can you hear me? You look very worried. Can you hear me, Ty?
Good morning.
Yes, now we can hear you.
Oh, good. Terrific. How are things, Cobus?
Oh, no, it's just incredibly busy. So it's running around, lots of projects.
Is this good?
Oh, well, let's hope.
Okay. Oh, good. All right. Well, I'm gonna just kind of get my bearings here for a minute and look at Zoom. Okay. Okay, great. We've got Andrew, we've got Paul, Cobus. Okay, is that gonna be everyone today?
Yeah, I believe so. I'm not
Okay.
sure. Hendrik said he will be 5 minutes late. He just needs to feed the dogs quickly.
Okay. Okay, sounds good. No problem. Got to keep those dogs happy. Okay, so I'm just getting my little outline going here. And you folks probably had an opportunity to look at what we're going to go over today. First off, thank you so much. What time is it there? Is it 3 p.m. your time?
Yes, just after 3.
Just after 3. Okay, great.
Yeah.
So let's we'll try and keep this contained to an hour or less. But I want to also make sure we don't skimp on what needs to be known. Also, from a technical standpoint, I believe it's Andrew that's kind of plays a technical role. Is that correct?
Yes, and Paul as well.
Paul does also. Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Paul has also been a veteran in the GroupWise and Novell space.
Oh, fantastic.
Andrew is the youngest certified GroupWise administrator in the world.
Really? That's great.
Andrew, how old were you when you got certified? 21 or 22?
I was 22.
Yes.
Wow. Hey, congratulations, Andrew. I love
Thank you
to
so
hear that.
much.
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah, there are not many of young people around doing that anymore. So
This is true. But
we created a whole new generation of young people that knows this stuff.
that's great. Well, think how much better prepared they are for everything else, because this is kind of the roots of so much stuff,
Yeah.
So, nothing's gonna be mystifying to you, because you've been at the console in a sense, so that's great. Okay, well, I'm gonna go ahead and take off, and because I don't think we'll miss much. What I want to do is just tell you. So what we're gonna do is I first want to show you the little page that we've created, a little resource page, and I'm gonna go ahead and just open this up. I'm gonna show you my screen here, and that way you can see what I'm doing. So share screen. And of course you saw that I'm recording this, and that way you can go back and refer to it later. All right, so I'm gonna go here, and of course, our website, but then we've got here NETCB, and this is just basically a way for me to hand to you, kind of like, oh gee, I'm talking about Cimitra, oh, I need to have this slide deck, or maybe I need to review how to do something or other. And then this is just kind of like a handy little resource page that we have here at our website. And so this is the Active Directory practice, this is the eDirectory practice, and oh, look at that. This is the GroupWise practice. And that's funny, because I wonder if that's just kind of, nope. All right, well, I need to go back into WordPress and see how this happened. But anyways, it's supposed to look like all the others, and something happened. But today I'm going to be just using this script to explain Cimitra and GroupWise and so forth. And so this is entirely available to you. I've shared it effectively with the public. And then here's just a little slide deck that has a little bit more of a GroupWise emphasis. And then here's the technical documentation on the GroupWise practice or integration, whatever you want to call it, but basically the ability to administer your GroupWise system vis-a-vis Cimitra. And of course, the purpose behind that, and I think you all know this, but just to double check, the purpose behind this is this notion of micro administration. So the ability to say, you know what, I just want to give people the ability to do X inside of GroupWise administration, while inside of Cimitra, but they can't do all these other things. So for example, you may want them to be able to change and update user accounts with phone numbers, titles, whatever it be, but you don't want them to be able to delete stuff. And so if you give them access to the typical tools, they can do a lot more harm, accidentally and so forth. And so that's the nice thing about Cimitra. You can literally make it so that people can go in, and I'm going to demonstrate this for you today, that you can design it, that you can make it so that a person can go in and just change phone numbers inside of GroupWise, effectively administration, but inside of Cimitra, and that's it. That's all they can do. They can just change phone numbers and then see the phone numbers that they've changed. And so it's really, really powerful. This notion of micro administration is really the kind of concept. So I'm going to go ahead and get into this, but I just want to pause for a moment and see if you guys have got any questions.
No, not it is. I'm not sure of the other guys.
Okay. All right. So and so this is that slide deck, and you've already been taken through this. I think all of you have. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so I don't need to go through the slide deck, but there is something that we need to review, and Cobus asked that I do this. There's the notion of kind of how does Cimitra work? Well, you basically have, think of it kind of like GroupWise. You have a server component, and then you have agent components, right? And so you deploy a Cimitra server, and the way that you do that is, and this is in your notes, but I'm going to just go here to cimitra.com and I'm going to go to all docs, okay, and then technical documentation. All right. And then here's the server setup. And so basically what you do is you designate one of your servers that's going to be your Cimitra server. And just, this doesn't have to be a dedicated box. You could just take, in our scenario, we're talking about GroupWise, just take one of your GroupWise boxes that maybe a domain or something like that. But anyways, you take that GroupWise box, and so it'll be a SLES box, and you're basically just going to go ahead and make sure that you've met the requirements, for a static IP address, put a DNS address to it, make sure that you've got the specific disk space and memory, additional memory allocation for Cimitra. Cimitra is not super hungry in resources and so forth. And so, you just want to make sure that you've got all those things allocated. And then the actual installation is really, really simple. You're just doing, you're going to sudo in, and then you're going to go ahead and take that command and throw that into the console for the server, and you're going to go ahead and just let it run, and it's going to run through this whole process here. And it takes about, well, it kind of depends based on the customer's network. Basically what it's doing is it's installing, if you've already got Docker installed, and I'd recommend you pre-install Docker on that machine. That's probably already going to be there anyways, but nonetheless, I recommend you do that. But if it doesn't have Docker installed, it attempts to install it, makes calls to the operating system and so forth, but it might fail. So that's why, again, I recommend that you'd put Docker in place prior to doing this installation routine. And then what it's doing is it's basically pulling the Cimitra software from Docker Hub. Okay, so you've heard of GitHub probably. So that's a repository for software and so forth. Well, Docker Hub's kind of the same thing. It's a repository for Docker images. All right, and so that's where Cimitra posts its code. And so those images get installed, and bada bing, you have a Cimitra server installed, and you just basically go ahead and follow along here and log into your Cimitra server at whatever IP address it's at, and then port 443. Now, if port 443 is taken, because, and this is very often the case in scenarios where you have GroupWise or redirectory, whatever, you might have 443 already taken. So it'll just go ahead and it'll install it to port 444. So you have to hit the server address :444. All right. And then there's a default login. Go ahead.
Yeah, what we've done on our side, even though it's running on port 444,
yes,
we put it behind Access Manager. So then we don't, then you can just type in our case, we call it admin.tasks.netcb.com, and you hit the Cimitra server directly without specifying a port.
Beautiful. That's awesome.
Okay.
That's great. So, so that's how you log in whatever fashion you folks have devised, but this is kind of what's going on behind the scenes. And then you proceed, at your customer's website, you want to put in a certificate specific to DNS, addresses in their environment. And then you'll want to look at, how do they authenticate into the server. By default, we just kind of have this very simple authentication. I mean, it's secure, but you'll probably want to migrate towards an LDAP kind of authentication typically, right? So your customers typically have eDirectory in play or Active Directory, and we can do LDAP against either of those. That way they don't have to remember what their username and password is for Cimitra. It's the same username and password that they have in the rest of their network. Okay. And then you also do have the potential to do Duo authentication. You can add that. What's really neat about Duo is that you get, for the first 10 licenses. Now, this is assuming it's still the case, but the first 10 licenses are free with Duo. And so that's kind of cool. And I know that it'd be nice if we got some authentication with Micro Focus variants and so forth. And as people purchase this and so forth, and there's more pressure to do that, then we're happy to do so. But that's currently what we have for an MFA solution. I'm going to pause for a moment and take any questions before I kind of keep going down through this.
Nothing from my side.
Nothing. Okay.
Yeah.
Nothing from my side as well.
Okay, great. And so after you've deployed the server and kind of set up everything and so forth, then what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to deploy agents. It's important that you get your DNS address all configured and so forth, and that you're hitting the server at the DNS address, and then you want to deploy your agents. And the reason for that is when you actually deploy the agents, when you download them and so forth, they basically have in their brains the fact that, hey, this is how I got deployed from the server. If you hit the server at an IP address and you deploy agents, guess what? They're wired to get a hold of the server at an IP address. And maybe that works, but but it's probably better to have a DNS address for those agents to be deployed at. So basically what happens in the architecture of Cimitra is, unlike inside of GroupWise, what happens is the way that things communicate is from the server down to the agents, okay? And that's a very common architecture for most about any technology. But Cimitra is different. Kind of think of Cimitra, and I'm just trying to make these connections to the technology you already know, but kind of think of Cimitra kind of like a GroupWise remote client. When you think about how GroupWise remote works, is it calls home to the POA on some kind of an interval, probably every minute or so, okay? And so it calls home to the POA, the GroupWise remote client does, the caching client, and it pulls down what's new, okay? Well, the Cimitra agent is configured in the same manner. What we do is when you're going to take an action inside of Cimitra, and you're clicking buttons to do things, what happens is the agent calls home every 5 seconds and says, hey, anything for me to do? And if you've clicked a button to do something inside of Cimitra, it says, yeah, go ahead and run bash, and then this command, and then these parameters. All right. And so anyways, that's how those agents are designed, but they call home every 5 seconds. It's best that that be at a DNS address. All right. All right. Now, and then, controlling your server and so forth. Here's just, typically you basically just, the server starts and bada bing, it's running, and it just kind of runs forever. There's nothing you really ever have to do. But if you did need to control the server, the Cimitra server, you just use these commands. So what's really nice is you don't have to know any Docker commands in order to control Cimitra. It's literally the only command you ever really have to remember is Cimitra, and then press Cimitra, and then it'll tell you kind of what the other commands, the sub commands are that can feed off of that command. Okay, and upgrading the Cimitra server is super simple. And then, and this documentation is basically just talking about all of the functionality inside of Cimitra, so I don't really have to talk about that. But something that I would recommend is that you consider is that you might, with your customers, put in custom branding. So let's say it's, city or province ABC, and they've got some little logo and so forth. Well, what's neat is you can go in and you can put in their logo so that really everything just kind of, looks like them. And there's the only thing that you see inside of Cimitra is just down below a little banner, very quiet banner that talks about Cimitra. Everything else is just their brand. Okay. And then there's just some more explanations here on, various other things, pre-made actions, troubleshooting Docker, and then of course we talk about upgrades. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and pause there for just a moment. Just, you know, upgrading Cimitra is a two-part process. We recommend Cimitra get server and then Cimitra server upgrade. What that does is by the get server, it basically just re-downloads the server script. There's a script called server that Cimitra has, and so it just re-downloads that. And that way, if there's some special modification we have to do, that's been obtained. So it really is a two-part process. Okay, so I'm going to stop there in talking about the server documentation, and we're going to swing back over to the GroupWise practice and talk about that. I'm going to pause for a moment. Any questions? Okay, nothing so far. Okay, great. That's great. Okay, now I'm going to close that out, and I'm going to close that out and close that out. All right, so now we're going to talk about the GroupWise practice. First off, I'm going to go ahead and log in and kind of give you my bearings here for a moment. I'm going to log in as an administrator. Okay, and there we go. All right, so this is kind of the main admin account I have, but there's actually other admin accounts I have in this particular system. And in fact, one of them will interface with in a moment. And just to kind of give you an update here, I'm logged in as Richard. Okay, we're going to show a couple different people who are going to be part of this demo. There's Sid, there was Adele, there's even a GroupWise admin user. And so every single one of those people are going to be part of this demo. And then really the only agent that we're going to be interacting with today is this agent that's deployed out on a SUSE Linux box that's hosting my GroupWise system, it's hosting my E directory, and it's hosting actually Cimitra also. But anyways, just a SUSE box that's doing that. It's out in Florida, is where this box is actually located, and I'm here in Orem, Utah. All right, and so so that's just kind of get your bearings of my system. And inside of here are various different folders, and inside of those folders are really the actions inside of Cimitra. Okay, so inside of Cimitra you can create actions. Okay, and so an action is basically just you know, kind of like the GUI representation, a pointer to a command or a script. Okay, so for example, I'm just going to do a test here, and I'm going to say, yeah, there's a Linux box out there, right? Remember, this is that agent, right? And I'm just going to say ls/tmp. Okay, that is a Cimitra action. See that? That's all that is. And so if you remember this process, when I click on run, what's going to happen? Andrew, sorry, I'm going to act like a professor here for a moment. I'm going to put you on the spot. I'm going to click on the run button. And if we just take you behind the scenes for a moment, what's going to happen when I click on that run button? Okay, you got to take me off of mute, Andrew.
I think it's gonna list what's in the temporary folder.
Yeah, perfect, great. And so, and the reason that is this agent calls home how often?
Pardon?
Every 5 seconds, right? So this
Yes.
agent calls home to this DNS address every 5 seconds and says, is there anything for me to do? Now, when I click on the run button, what's going to happen, just kind of down back behind the scenes, is that's going to create in the database, it's going to create a request that basically says, hey, this agent needs to run this command. And so when he calls home, he's going to say, hey, anything for me to do? And the server's going to say, well, yes, I do actually have something for you to do. And he's go, oh, great. What do I do? And he says, do an ls/tmp. And then the agent is wired. It's designed to basically run whatever the command is. And this is extremely simple. A lot of times we'll have like a bash script, and so it'll be the bash script and then space lstmp, and then there might be some switches or something like that. In fact, what I'm going to do, just for fun, I hope this works, I think it will, I'm going to do an ls here, and I'm going to make that a switch. Okay, so it's basically, if you were to think about this as a command line, it's just the interpreter space ls space tmp space, and then any other switches that we might have. Okay, that's what this is. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and click on that and click on run. All right, agent calls home every 5 seconds. Anything for me to do? We say, yeah, go ahead and run ls space, and that's the contents of the tmp directory on that Linux box where that agent's deployed. Okay, so now you fully understand really what an action is, right? It's just a GUI to a command or a script in the background. Okay, so now I'm going to dig deeper then into the GroupWise practice. Okay, and so the way this is designed is you go out and you install the GroupWise practice, and first off, what you want to do is deploy a Cimitra agent to the SUSE box where you've got GroupWise installed. I'd recommend that you probably want to put it at like where your administration software comes from, you know what I mean, from GroupWise, okay, the administration console. So you know where that is. And so you deploy a Cimitra agent there, and then guess what you do? You just do Cimitra get GW. All right. In fact, I'm just going to show that to you here for a moment. I've already done it, but I'm going to come over to my Linux box. Oh my goodness, got all these little controls here. Here we go. I'm going to come over to this Linux box. There we go. And I'm going to do something like this. Cimitra get GW. Boom. Okay. And so that installed the software, and then basically Cimitra GW is the command that you run in order to kind of administer this, the installation process. Okay, and so after I've done that, and the documentation is going to take you through that. I'm not going to drag you through that, but here's what it does is it asks you for credentials into GroupWise, and then if it detects that you've got it integrated with eDirectory, it then will prompt you for LDAP credentials in order to talk to eDirectory, because if you've got scenarios, and I'm assuming probably a lot of your customers do, where their GroupWise system is grafted into eDirectory. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty typical, right? And so we need to be able to, when you go to administer a user, we sit there and we go, oh, hey, is this user in eDirectory? And we first talk to GroupWise first to determine that vis-a-vis the API. And then we go, oh, okay, they are. Okay, then I really need to be changing the phone number attribute for this object inside of eDirectory versus just changing the phone number attribute for this object inside of GroupWise. Okay, and so that's why you have to go through the setup routine, is so we can ask for particulars about how to get into GroupWise and eDirectory. Okay, so again, I'm not going to run you through this. I kind of want you to study this on your own, because it could take a little while. But that's how you proceed. So you go ahead and run configuration, and you integrate the post office. Now I want to talk about an exclude group, and this is really powerful. I have this functionality in both the E directory and the Active Directory and the GroupWise practices. And basically what it is now you're going to allow people to be able to make changes. It might be very, very small what you're allowing them to do, or it might be very broad what you're allowing them to do. But you may also want to make sure that they can't fiddle with certain users. All right. So, and so all that you want to do is you basically just want to add those users. So let's say Cobus says, hey, we're going to use this internally inside of NETCB, but I don't want people to be fiddling with me, with my object, okay? Because, you know, that could cause problems. And so he can go ahead and put himself inside of this GroupWise group, and you can call it whatever you want to call it. Okay, so you just define a group, and then you basically go inside of a settings file, and inside of that settings file, you I think we've had these little buttons to tell you how to do it, but you actually need to go inside of this settings file. So I certainly hope I have it in the documentation. Give me a moment here. So let me go to var, cd to var, Cimitra group, Cimitra scripts, GroupWise, okay, and then help desk. And then there's this file called settings gwcfg, and inside of there is the actual place that you define the exclude group. All right, and so that also has credentials and stuff in it. I'm going to do a cat settings, and I'm going to do pipe through grep -I exclude. Okay, so you see that. There's a bunch of other stuff in there too that I didn't want you to see, like credentials. And so that's why I'm doing it in that way. So let's just imagine I just open that up, and so you can see inside of this system, we have a exclude group called Cimitra exclude, and it's off of the Cimitra post office, Cimitra domain, and it's enabled. And so what that does is I've now got a group and called Cimitra exclude, and guess what? If we went and tried to change T Kratzer, you couldn't change T Kratzer when using the GroupWise practice. Again, you haven't seen the GroupWise practice, but I wanted to show that to you here, and we'll be able to witness that later. And then I could go on and on, but I think that this pretty much explains how to do it. In fact, let's just kind of get into this practice, and then we're going to come back to the documentation and kind of walk through the process of importing stuff. So when you install the GroupWise practice for Cimitra, it does this automatic installation of, here we go, of all of these actions, okay? But this was kind of like the version 1.0 of the GroupWise practice for Cimitra. It still has value, but I want to just tell you, kind of show you what it does. You can sit here and you can like list all of the users in a particular post office. Okay, well, that's nice. And so that way I can see the users that I can administer. Okay, and so, okay, that's cool. But that was like version 1.0 of this GroupWise practice. Again, it installs and it just puts it in this place, and you know, like it makes a GroupWise folder, and it makes these user access, user changes, user fixes, all these things that you can do. Now, this isn't, you're not necessarily going to share these folders with everyone else. You're going to take and you're going to go, okay, yeah, I want them to be able to create a user, okay, but I don't want them to be able to delete users, okay? And so you might take and like take one of these objects and throw it into another folder and do something similar to what I've done here. Is I've gone here and I've taken this and I've made this kind of a structure, just myself, just manually, I created this. And then I took that create user functionality and I dragged and dropped it in here, and then just kind of spiced it up a bit and this is the folder that I'm sharing with Adele, is the person who's going to be on the help desk who I'm sharing this with. I'm going to pause for a moment and see if there was a question on that. I thought I heard someone. Okay, great. So let me show you then. That's how, when you do that installation, it creates that folder structure. And then we have kind of the version 2.0 version of the GroupWise practice. So when you configure credentials and you do the install and stuff, it'll create all of those little actions. But those are what I call single purpose actions. But then we can import what's called multi-purpose actions. Okay, and so what you can do is after you've installed, you can do something like this. You can go to create and import, create, import, there we go. And then you can say, go to this URL and import. Okay, and what that did was it pulled a JSON file off of GitHub. Okay, that's really what it's doing. And then you just have to modify this action to reflect your post office. So it automatically showed my post office, but that's just because when I put it out, the JSON file out on GitHub, it was based on my system. And so you're going to have to go in and this will be something like NETCB or something like that, right? And then let's imagine that it's like NETCB CB PO or something like that. And so you're going to want to modify that in that fashion, and then bada bing, everything else is going to work just fine. All right. And so I'm going to discard that. I'm not going to use that, but I wanted you to kind of understand how I got each one of these actions was by using this import functionality. And so here's one for name change. This is modifying a user and so forth. Okay, so let's look at this modify GroupWise user functionality. Okay, so this literally, you don't have to wire this up in any fashion. You literally just import it. You change the post office name. I'm sorry, the post office variable, change the name, and then you instantly can do run, and you're going to see something similar to this. Okay, so there we go. We got a listing of all of the users inside of the Cimitra post office. Okay, so I can take, for example, this user D Dorton, and I can say, hey, let's drill into D Dorton and look at attributes of D Dorton. So really what we're simulating here, when you think about it, okay, so you see this is all this information about Dan Dorton. Okay, so you can see, attributes of their mailbox, of their directory object, and so forth, all there. What we're simulating is that we went into, when you think about when you go into GroupWise administration, typically what you do is you go and you look at the users, okay? And then you're like, okay, I want to do something on Dan Dorton's account, okay? And I want to, I'll take off expiration. I've been playing with that when playing with it before. I want to go ahead and change a phone number. Okay. And so that's typically what you do, right? And then you save. Well, we're trying to give the same experience. But of course, as you know, in Cimitra, it's much, much safer because I can't delete Dan like I could in here, but I can make changes to Dan. So I can sit here and I can say, let's go ahead and let's put in that number, okay, 555-1212. All right, just for fun. Actually, I hit the wrong button. You see the get user info? So I did that. Let's just do modify user. That information's still there. And so I'm just going to go ahead and click on run again. And we're now actually going to change Dan Dorton's object, and we changed the phone number to 801-555-1212, and you can see that here. Now I'm going to take you back into GroupWise. Okay, I don't see the phone number change. Why? Because I've got that object open, but now I'm going to go ahead and go to D Dorton, and we're going to see, there we go. There's the phone number change, right? Because we're just calling the same API that that GroupWise calls. Okay, GroupWise has a fantastic admin API, and so we're just calling that and making those changes. All right, and so I can do, and the way this action that we imported basically from GitHub has been designed is it's actually an exact mirror to how GroupWise administration looks. So for example, we've got the phone number area, that's the contact information, organization information, and then postal information. So if I come back over here to Dan Dorton's object, you see that we've got the contact information, and then we've got his object, we've got the contact information, organization information, and postal information. And so all of those fields have basically been mapped over, and we can now make changes. And then of course, share this with other people. All right. So that's modifying a user using the Cimitra GroupWise practice. And then you can do things like changing a name, you know. So I could say, you know, modify user D Dorton, and I could say Dan, you know, he goes, now he's like, hey, let's just go by my short name. Okay, great. So that's going to go ahead and change him from Daniel to Dan Dorton. All right. And so that's okay. So we just changed him, and now his name is Dan Harry Dorton Jr. Okay. So now, and then we have a cool functionality that this feature simply doesn't exist inside of GroupWise, but because of the GroupWise API, I can do stuff like this. It's kind of cool. Basically, in one fell swoop, I can take and I can offboard a user. All right. And so here's the idea. Typically, when you have a user leave an organization, you don't want to delete them right away for various different reasons. You know, what if they've given proxy access to their folders and they've got some important information that needs to be there? You also want to make sure the stuff gets archived off into retain or whatever it be. But what you want to have happen though, so you don't want to delete them, but you do want them to kind of like exit, meaning you don't want people to see them in the address book. You don't want anybody to have access to their account and so forth. And so this is a very, very simple way of just kind of having them disappear without everything disappearing on that account. And so I'm going to go ahead and let's do this. You know, today was the last day for Dan Dorton, and so we're going to go ahead and click on that. And now Dan's going to another company, and so but we want to disable his account. He's no longer in the address book and so forth. And so it just did that. It disabled Dan, inactivated their account, changed their visibility to none, and bada bing, we've now offboarded them. And then what's really cool about this feature is we've actually gone in. Now this folder I've shared with Adele for her to be able to make changes, but there's actually a place where I can list all of, under admin only actions, I can list all of the offboarded users. And so I'm going to click on this and I'm going to say list all offboarded users. Why would I do this as the administrator? Well, I want to continue that process of making sure that they're archived and so forth. And at some point I want to actually delete the account. but who's been offboarded, you know? Oh, okay, Brian Taylor's been offboarded and Dan Dorton's been offboarded. Okay, I'm going to go do the things inside of their GroupWise account. Maybe I open back up, go in, look at proxy folders, whatever it be, and I look and retain and just make sure everything's ready to go. And then I can actually delete the user. But this is a really neat way to identify users that have been offboarded vis-a-vis Cimitra. How do we do that? The way we do that, because you're like, well, how did I designate Dan Dorton as, you know, an offboarded user, right? What it is we modify the admin defined field 20. Cobus, you're familiar with that. I don't know if the others of you are, but we've just defined and said that this was a Cimitra offboard. And so when we're calling the API and we're saying who's been offboarded, I'm just looking for the users. I'm looking for who's got Cimitra offboard in admin defined field 20, and then I am able to show that. Now, if you don't want to do that because you're already using admin defined field 20, then you can turn off this functionality. Any questions so far?
No question from my side. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right, so now you've seen those pieces of functionality. I'm going to come back over here and just kind of continue the journey so you can sit here. Okay, now I'm going to talk to you about this notion of how I created this action. And in fact, I'm going to log out as Richard for a moment, and I'm going to log in as Sid, actually. Okay. And let me take that down here. And I'm going to show you this notion of what I call micro administration. Log in as Sid here. Okay. So see this phone numbers, GroupWise, change phone number. So this was shared with me by, well, I thought I could click on that. Anyways, this was shared with me by Richard to Sid. Okay, so we're logged into Sid's account, and when he clicks on run, look at that. All Sid can do is he can list all the users, he can get user info, and he can modify a user. So let's just go ahead and list all the users. I can't use Dan Dorton any longer because Dan's kind of disappeared. And in fact, another thing that happened was he was put into what's called the exclude group. And so because he's in the exclude group, I can't see him any longer. That's another thing that offboarding does. It will put them in the exclude group if you've indicated you want that to happen. But anyways, so let's go ahead and take Anna Bertola, and let's kind of click on Anna in a sense, right? And let's see information about Anna. Okay, here's Anna. Now, do you notice something kind of different about the experience that we have as Sid when we look at Anna versus when we were logged in as the administrator and we look at someone like Anna or Dan or whatever?
Yeah.
What do you see that's different?
Let's do that again.
What do you see that's different about Anna? When we're logged in as Sid, we're looking at Anna, and we said, get me the info on Anna. It's kind of like clicking the user inside of GroupWise administration. What are we seeing about Anna? We're only, go ahead.
We only see some fields.
Yeah, exactly. Perfect. Exactly. Exactly. You're only seeing the fields that I, as the administrator, when I went and I set it up, well, I'll take you behind the scenes in a moment, but you're only seeing the fields that I want them to see. Okay. So I'm basically saying, hey, only show them the phone numbers. And I'm also saying only allow them to change these phone numbers. That's it. can't change the title, can't change, anything else about them. All Sid can do, Sid is basically a administrative assistant, and he doesn't have any kind of an IT role. He just has, he's kind of there at the front desk. Hundreds of people come in, they have phone numbers that change regularly. And so he's able to make phone numbers. So we've told the organization, hey, guess what? If you need to change a phone number, you're welcome to talk to Sid versus having to call the help desk, etc. And so Sid now has this really powerful functionality. He can go ahead and make changes to phone numbers without this ever even having to go to the help desk. All right. And so let's take you behind the scenes and show you how I did that. In fact, I'm going to actually walk you through that. So I'm going to go ahead, log back in as Richard. I'm going to go into this GroupWise folder that I've created and user onboarding. Okay. So just take you behind the scenes for a minute. And so this is the very same script that we're using for the GroupWise practice. And we basically said, show only the office phone and the mobile phone. Now, in a moment, that you might go, well, where would I learn that? Well, you'll see in a moment. Okay. And so that's how I accomplished just making this one micro application that just changes phone numbers. So let me just show you how you can do this yourself. So just take that root modify GroupWise user action that you imported from us, and then just basically make a duplicate of it. And I'm going to say modify user phone numbers, something like that. Okay. And then see where it's got here. See the switches here? Show user attribute display. First off, because I'm going to make this for someone like Sid, we don't need to show the account status and the mailbox status. And then see here in between double quotes, it says, hey, show all these fields: generation qualifier, middle initial, office phone, mobile phone, home phone, other phone, fax number, page number, title, company, etc. Right? Well, guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to take off that. I'm going to say, don't want to display that. And then I'm going to say, take off that. In fact, let's say that we also want them to be able to do mobile phone. We're going to change this up just a bit. And so there we go. All right. Mobile office phone, mobile phone, and home phone. We will allow those three things to be shown. Okay. Or I could say, you know what, show everything, but guess what I can do? I can go here and I can say, okay, they select the post office, they select the action, they've got the user ID, and right here, so I'm going to say, I do want them to change the phone, the mobile phone, and the home phone, but I don't want them to delete, I don't want them to be able to modify anything else. So you see this here, see this little trash can, delete, fax number, delete, pager number, delete, and all the rest of this stuff, all those fields that I don't want them to be able to modify, I can just delete them. So you can see it's really, really simple. You don't have to go and read any documentation. Hey, how do I do this? Or look at the script. What are the switches and so forth? You literally just take that base action, and you're basically, all you're doing is just deleting stuff off of it, because you're like, well, I don't want them to be able to do that. And so you're clicking on modify user phones, and here we go, phone, mobile phone, and a home phone, right? And so if I do A Kratzer and I do modify user, and I'm going to say, hey, you know what, here's their home phone, something like that, and then I click on run, what's going to come back with? It's going to show me all the fields on Anastasia, right? Or Anna here. All the fields are available. Why? Because I didn't say delete all those fields, but the only fields that I can modify are these fields. Okay, and I'm almost feeling like I'm running into a little bug, because home phone, yeah, that should have changed. So let's go ahead and see if that actually did change and we're just not doing a refresh. So let's just look at that for a moment here. Yeah, that didn't change. So I'm clearly not mapping that field correctly. So guess what? I've got to fix this. But here's the good news about this is when I fix this, if you've actually, if we run into a bug, okay, and I then have to update the code and so forth. So this is kind of a good scenario. I'm going to take and show you how you update. Okay, you'll just go to wherever on the server and you'll do a Cimitra GW update. And the documentation talks about that. And boop, it pulls down all the code again and so forth. But I seem to be having a problem with the home phone number. So I'll fix that, you know, today, and then that'll be all resolved. So you kind of see how that works. You just take that base action and you just chew it off, and that's what I did. And then I just threw it into like this phone numbers thing, and then I shared this, and I went in and I said, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and share this with Sid, you know, and boop, I clicked on it, and it was shared with Sid. And that's how I created a micro action and then shared it with someone else. Okay. All right, that let me take you to, there's a portion of this GroupWise practice that I haven't shown you, and this is called user account access. So it's kind of got this the standard stuff that you have here. You choose the post office. Now you can design this that they maybe you've got 10 post offices, but you want to have different administrators for different post offices. You may want to do that, and so you could design it that this isn't even a drop down. You could just make it so that it's just Cimitra PO. That's it, and you've got that in a folder specific to the post office name. So it's very, very flexible. Anyway, so I'm going to show you then. I'm going to take Anna, and I'm going to go ahead, and there's all of these actions that I can take on her account. So let's say that, you know, Anna's going to be leaving the organization, but at a certain point, and so I'm going to go here and go into my calendar, and I'm going to say, yeah, she's going to leave on the 2nd at, you know, this time or something like that, and click on run. And so this is setting the expiration date for that account. Now, this time is based on, so I'm here Mountain, but the server is Eastern. And so that's why you're seeing that time variance. All right. But anyways, if I come back over here and I show you Anna's account, look at that. See the expiration date? That's because we set the expiration date. And I can go back here and I can actually remove the expiration on her account. And again, you might look at this and go, wow, that's way too much power. I don't want people to be able to do those things. I just want them to be able to activate accounts or something like that. Maybe someone's account is disabled or it's activated. Great. So and that's all I want to give them to be able to do. Okay, great. No problem. So what are you going to do? You're going to just go ahead and go here and, you know, duplicate, or you can modify this one, but I'm going to duplicate it just so I'm not trashing my demo system. And I'm going to do something like this. I'm going to go here and I'm going to go down here, and I'm going to say, remember I said I wanted them to be able to enable accounts, and I want them to be able to activate accounts, right? And so I can just boop, boop, okay. And then since I don't want them to be able to change visibility, I can just delete that. We don't need that any longer. And I don't want them to be able to expire accounts because I'd gotten rid of those. So those extra fields weren't needed. And so I'm going to click on create. And here we go, user account access. And then I'd probably just go and delete that other user account access that's in this folder. And there we go. See that? Enable account, activate account. That's it. And so I've now modified that, and then there's this change user password, and so this is where I can change a person's password inside of GroupWise. But also, just if they're grafted, if their GroupWise system is grafted into eDirectory, then you're actually modifying the eDirectory password here. All right. And so, but if they're not, you're just modifying the GroupWise password. And what's neat is that the script has the intelligence to detect that and to go, oh, they're grafted in. Okay, I'm actually doing an LDAP call to modify the password versus a GroupWise call to modify the GroupWise password. Okay, we've covered everything, and we're right at the hour. I've got additional time, obviously, and there might be some questions, but go ahead with any questions that you might have.
I just want to know, what's the audit tab for next to actions?
What's the what again?
The audit tab.
Oh, audit. Got it.
Audit.
Yeah. Okay, you bet. So this is what it is you're like, hey, who's been modifying stuff? Oh, look at that, admin did, or I guess I've just been doing everything there's Adele, right? So I can sit there and I can see who's been doing what. Okay, so now you've given this powerful functionality to other people like Adele to be able to do things, but you as an administrator, you can go in and you can audit what's been going on. And so you have this very powerful ability to look over the shoulder of people to see who's been doing what. In fact, I could sit here, I could take that off. I'm just going to say, just show me everything. And so here in a moment, okay, here we go. So you can see all of the things that have gone on, and it's as though you jumped in the time machine right at that moment in time, and you get to see what the output was from the action that they took.
Okay.
And in fact, in Cimitra, there is the ability to even create auditors. And so so you see these little shields, those are administrators, but you see the little clipboard, those people are also auditors. But I could, and so if I were to log out and I were to log in as Adele, you're going to see that she's not an administrator, so she doesn't have all these, she can't look at the agents and so forth. But I did make her an auditor, so she can go in and she can audit. But I'm going to go ahead and take away her audit rights. And then poof, oh, I locked this one. Okay, Tay, okay, let's try that again. Admin AD at okay, I'm going to go to users, Adele, and go here, take off auditor functionality, update, and then I'm going to go here, log in as Adele. And you notice she no longer has that auditing functionality. And all she's got access to is whatever's been shared with her. The GroupWise administrator now trusts Adele to do things like restarting agents. And so she can sit here and she can restart the GroupWise POA. I didn't show that to you, but we've got a GroupWise user and or GroupWise admin, and he's shared that with her to be able to do. So, okay, good question. Love it. Okay, any other questions?
Not for me at the moment.
Okay.
Just one question. If I share on a folder level,
Mhm.
will all the subfolders inherit that share?
Yes,
Okay.
good question. Also, something that we added recently to the code back in December, you see those little arrows? That tells you it's been shared with others, and the little people means it's been shared with me. So this was shared with me by the GroupWise administrator, and so that's nice. And then I've shared this with other people, the ability to manage Windows print jobs, and I shared it with this user called Heroku Demo. So that's kind of how everything's laid out. So, all right, well then, so let me just ask some quick questions just so I can kind of get an update on the on how things are going on your end. How are things going on your end? Introducing this to customers, or what are your thoughts about this GroupWise practice and your customers?
Yeah, we've already introduced it to a couple of customers.
Mhm.
There's still quite a number that we need to introduce it, but the last 2 weeks was a bit difficult to set up demonstrations with clients because it's that time of the year that everyone is running around with all sorts of year-end preparations, and government goes into the final month of their financial year next month.
Okay.
So they've been running around quite significantly.
Okay. Okay. All right. Well, good. Okay. Do you see this getting traction with your GroupWise customers?
There's a couple of ones that we definitely want to get this implemented. I think, Andrew, you will know which one I'm talking about. The one that logs every stupid little call every day.
Well, there's actually two of them, Curtis. But yeah. So definitely, there's actually a lot of customers that's been showing interest. Something else that we've been using to sort of sell the solution that seems to be working is in South Africa we face a big problem in terms of skills. You know, just in terms of general IT skills, but more specifically, the skills that you do find, they're very astute at being able to navigate windows and, you know, your typical click next, click there type solution. So where most of our customers are running Linux infrastructure, they don't have the skills to actually manage those servers. So something else that we found that's a nice way of selling this is actually to overcome that, where you don't need to every time now either find or go look for a resource that has Linux skills, or spend months or weeks trying to onboard that resource, you know, to understand your systems and how to do what on which server, etc. Because with this system, it's much simpler. So you can show a new employee within half a day's time, you know, click on this, select that, etc. So we found that to be quite a door opener, so to speak.
Fantastic. Which is exactly what I just demonstrated as you were talking, that, you know, I basically effectively what I did was I issued a creepy Linux command at a console, but without having to go to the console, right? Yeah. So, and all that means, you know, so fantastic. I love to hear that. In fact, I really do. I've always felt like this should be I'm really glad to hear you folks are getting traction with this. And I have felt like we should be able to get a lot of traction in this area, because, you know, who wants to give console access, right? Oh, okay, yeah.
Exactly.
Who wants to give console access to a Linux box to people? You don't want to do that, you know.
Well, that's the other 2 points that we're using to sell it is actually privileged access management, because we can now have a super admin that's sitting in the back end configured in the scripts, etc. And the users, they authenticate using their own credentials. And then obviously the concept of least privilege. you don't want to give somebody access to the whole suite of commands that's available in the console. You can give them a set list of commands or clickable items that executes the command. So least privilege, the concept of least privilege is also a big point of sale that we talk to our customers about.
Oh, that's fantastic. This is
Can you see
beautiful. I love your logo there. That looks awesome. Love it.
Yeah, I just want to show the rest of the guys. You've all been granted access here now. So you can log in and you can use your eDirectory logins. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Which
yes.
Which one do you
Yes.
see?
We can see your
I see
screen,
the
but the
names.
ones with the users.
Oh, you
Yeah.
see the okay. I just picked up a small thing.
Yeah.
I by accident created the eDirectory one here, but for some reason I can't edit that one. Although the other eDirectory server, that one I can edit.
Really?
Yeah, but I can't. If I click on that one, I can't. It doesn't do anything.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness, that's bizarre. Okay, that's I never seen that before. So
But we should be able to-
that looks that's like a
Can I tell you what happened? I've accidentally clicked on add server here, and then I'm not going to do it now because otherwise I'm afraid it's going to do the same thing with this one.
Mhm.
But then a little trash bin appeared next to the additional server, but when you click on it, it didn't remove it.
wow.
So when it still allowed me to update it, but after that I couldn't edit it at all. Whereas
Okay.
this one is still working fine. So I'm
Okay. Well, that's great because I'm recording this. I'm going to show this to one of the developers that would be responsible for this. And then I can also try and duplicate on my end, you know?
okay.
Okay.
And then
Wow. Okay.
obviously, it's if I select that one
Hmm.
with that has got one correct LDAP server and one blank one. It doesn't want to authenticate, but with this one, it does work.
Oh, gee. Okay. Wow.
Okay.
You get the gold star today for finding that bug.
Yeah.
Wow.
I love finding bugs in software. So
Yeah. Yeah. But you haven't found any others, right?
not yet.
Oh, good. Good. Okay. Then I'm doing my job. That's my job to do testing, just, you know, so.
No, even on our system here, if I go to, I don't want to go here. User reports, users with no phone number. Let's see if it runs.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah, there are a couple of accounts without phone numbers, so
Right.
these are just not real important accounts.
Have you fiddled with the exclude group?
Yes, I have.
Good, good. Okay.
So quickly, I go to, I just want to log in as one administrator. Haven't shared that option yet. It wasn't on this account. But this is some stuff that we started to create ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
If I quickly want to check whether the Tomcat server is running on this box.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Right.
And get a, or if I want to quickly restart it.
Beautiful.
Okay.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Okay.
That's great.
Yeah, there's I'm busy working with one of our developers just to create quite a complex script for GroupWise, because you can extract through the GroupWise REST API. You can get a list of all the users' shared folders and with whom he shared those folders.
Wow.
Okay. But you can't get you can only go per user in the GroupWise admin console to see with whom a user has shared folders. But through the REST API, you can get a whole list. So we're busy creating a script to actually generate that report.
Oh, that is neat. That is neat. Yeah. So you're providing more value to GroupWise, you know, vis-a-vis Cimitra, right? It's like, hey, it's got this great API, and you know, gee, I want this feature. Well, I can make it myself now. You know.
But the interesting thing is, I got a request like that from one of the clients. So we're going to specifically use that capability to show it to them, because I need to generate that report on a regular basis.
Wow. Wow. Cobus, no pressure, but sometime next time you're talking to Mr. Bills, I'd love it if you showed him the GroupWise practice for Cimitra.
I will definitely do that. It's if I get a chance to get a response from him.
Right. Yeah. I get that. Yeah, we've been knocking at the door of Micro Focus literally for years now, and get no response.
You know what? Rather talk to Robin Redgrave and let him open up the doors.
Wait, so Robin Redgrave is the person?
Yeah, although he's from a pre-sales technical perspective, but he will quite often go and contact Mike Bills and say, hey, I need you to look at this.
Wow.
And then you will probably get the meeting.
Okay. Do you have good relations with him?
With Robin?
Yes.
Oh yes, no, Robin and myself, we've had many bottles of wine together. So
good.
We've done many presentations together in the past. So
would you mind doing an introductory email to me and Robin? He knows my name, I know his name, but just to kind of warm that up, and then just kind of tell him the nature of this. Hey, there's this really neat thing, provides value to GroupWise. That's why, you know what I mean? I mean, who's writing stuff outside of NETCB and me and Cimitra? Who's writing stuff for GroupWise?
Yeah, and what they I'm not sure if you know about it, but on a monthly basis is a GroupWise update webinar. Okay.
Yes.
And if he likes, I can tell him about this, and then I'll copy you, and maybe he will invite you to present at one of these sessions, and then you can present to the entire GroupWise community.
Which can you imagine?
Lastly, I did a presentation 2 weeks ago on our video conferencing integration, and there were 98 people on the webinar.
Oh my goodness! Oh my goodness! What did they say about that integration?
Oh, we got so many requests, which is just unbelievable. So
that is so awesome. I love that software. I am so impressed by it. And yeah, I mean, it's like you're saying this is a great platform. The GroupWise is a great platform. I mean, it's a no-brainer for Micro Focus. It's like you make the platform look legitimate, you know.
But the bean counters don't realize it. So
yeah,
they don't realize it.
Yeah.
At all. It's the thing is, what I still can't understand, Micro Focus is a global organization. They own their own messaging platform, and only the old ex-Novell staff is using GroupWise. The rest of them are all running Exchange.
Right.
I mean, why will you go and spend millions of dollars to Microsoft for the software licensing for almost 14,000 users on Exchange? I mean, take that money and push it in R&D on GroupWise.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
It's sometimes their decision-making processes, it just doesn't make sense.
yeah.
So now you must see this in South Africa when they present to clients and they talk about their collaboration solutions and they open up their email client, it is Outlook.
Yeah.
It doesn't create trust with the clients, and the clients ask, why are they not using GroupWise?
Right. Yeah. Bizarre. I agree. It's just bizarre.
Oh, well.
Yeah.
We'll see
Oh,
what-
well, you know, we're there, we'd solve all the problems, Cobus, right? You know,
Yeah.
so, well, you folks have been so generous with your time. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you guys are getting your hands dirty in this, because that's the only way to really understand it.
Yeah.
So thank you so much. And yeah, just reach out to me, and yeah, I look forward to that introductory email if you could, Cobus.
Yeah, no, I'll definitely send him an email tomorrow.
Okay.
I won't get to it today, but tomorrow.
Sure.
definitely, so.
But
Okay.
but like if you CC me or to me, that way
Yeah.
it kind of opens up that dialogue. That'd be great.
Okay.
All right, guys.
No, thank you very much for the session today. And
Yeah.
then when we get stuck, we'll shout.
Okay, sounds good, guys.
Okay.
Talk to you later.
Okay. Okay. Keep well. Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.